You are not merely gazing at a reflection in the mirror. Your mind is actively deciding who you are about to become. Yet, the vast majority of individuals remain completely oblivious. They have no idea that this profound choice is executed daily in absolute silence, without ever asking for permission. It takes place during completely ordinary moments when nothing feels critical, even though a structural reorganization is occurring deep beneath your awareness. The glass only captures your physical appearance, but your mind's interpretation of it is purely architectural. Your brain does not simply view your face. It decodes hidden patterns, evaluates consistent repetition, and constructs a permanent psychological model of your identity based entirely on what it witnesses, day after day. True identity never shifts during massive, dramatic breakthroughs. It transforms through slow, quiet accumulation. Minor daily choices that seem totally irrelevant are logged by your psyche as undeniable evidence of your character. Standards that are subtly lowered do not just vanish from your mental matrix. They are permanently archived. Your brain refuses to judge these moments with emotion at first. It treats them strictly as cold, behavioral data, and over time, that exact data solidifies into the bedrock of how you define yourself. Psychologists describe part of this through Daryl Bem Self-Perception Theory. The core premise is brutal. Human beings routinely deduce their own identity by stepping back and analyzing their own repeated actions. When building your sense of self, your mind completely ignores your good intentions. It prioritizes your unyielding repetition. Whatever you repeat eventually becomes your ultimate truth, not because you whispered it into existence, but because your actions continuously proved it. Neuroscience expands on this reality through predictive coding. This is a mechanism where the brain operates as a non-stop forecasting engine rather than a passive receiver of reality. It maps out internal blueprints of the world and constantly updates those maps using fresh, incoming data. Crucially, this blueprint includes your very self. Your brain is perpetually calculating what kind of individual you are, based entirely on your behavioral consistency. It aggressively adjusts that calculation whenever a new habit confirms or shatters your previous patterns. At this profound level, identity ceases to be about belief. It becomes a matter of accumulated tracking data. Every repeated action reinforces a specific blueprint of who you are. Every repeated failure to act decays and destroys another. As time passes, your mind stops differentiating between what you intended to do and what you actually did. It only recognizes frequency. There is a precise tipping point that most people completely miss. It is the exact moment this internal automation begins to dictate who they are, instead of being dictated by them. It is never a sudden, cataclysmic collapse. It is a slow, creeping acceptance of bad habits without a single correction. A delayed responsibility morphs into your new normal. A broken vow becomes easily rationalized. A degraded standard becomes entirely tolerable. None of these isolated incidents feel catastrophic on their own, but woven together, they lock in the final trajectory of your identity. What makes this psychological trap so terrifyingly potent is that repetition without immediate correction transforms into internal permission. When a toxic behavior is repeated and left unchallenged, the brain interprets it as a verified, acceptable component of your identity matrix. Over time, passive acceptance completely replaces active resistance. What was once a temporary flaw becomes structurally integrated into your soul. Confidence is routinely misunderstood as a prerequisite you are born with. In reality, it is almost always the downstream consequence of accumulated behavioral evidence. When an individual forces themselves to act in total alignment with discipline and personal accountability, the mind has no choice but to build deep trust in those reliable patterns. That earned trust eventually surfaces in the consciousness as unshakable confidence. It is never manufactured through mere positive thinking. It is forged through high-frequency repetition that systematically eliminates all self-doubt. At the very center of this entire psychological framework lies an absolute law that most people will never consciously comprehend. The brain does not become what you desire in a single moment of motivation. It becomes what you repeat without interruption. Carl Jung famously observed that whatever is ignored or pushed into the dark does not simply vanish. It continues to operate aggressively beneath your conscious awareness, quietly steering your life patterns until it finally manifests as what you call fate. The exact same rule applies to your discipline, your habits, and your personal standards. Nothing is ever truly wiped away through neglect. Every single detail is permanently recorded through repetition. The mirror never shows you who you are in theory. It displays exactly what you have repeatedly reinforced until it became stable enough to masquerade as your perfect identity. Who you ultimately become is dictated entirely by what you repeatedly allow, what you reinforce, and what you normalize within your daily patterns. Eventually, this massive accumulation becomes visible to the naked eye, not as a sudden shock, but as an undeniable recognition. And one day, the only terrifying truth left to realize is that you were not transforming into that person in a single dramatic moment. You were becoming them continuously, in every single second that felt far too small to ever matter.